That's right, Stoner fam. What's up? Welcome to another episode of the Cannabis Man podcast, the 1-year anniversary edition of the show. I can't thank you enough for joining me on this journey for the past year. It has been an absolute joy for me, so I thought I'd spark up right from the get-go there, and I hope you've done the same. A very happy 420 to you. I hope you have a proper celebration and enjoy life in the best way possible, however you choose to do that. But we got a lot to get to on this anniversary episode, and again, thank you to everybody who has been here along the way. We've talked to some really great people over the last year. I think we've gotten some excellent information out about cannabis, and there's more and more coming out every day. I've got a lot to get to this week, lots to share with you. If it's your first time here, welcome in. This is a show where we try to take a journalistic look at all things cannabis. I'm a broadcaster in Chicago. I've worked in news and traffic on the radio for a long time, and I've been a personal cannabis user for about 15 years or so now. And that level of use has gone up and down over the years, but either way, in Illinois, where I live and work, they legalized cannabis recreationally back in 2020. And I was very excited, but I wanted to see kind of how Illinois' rollout went. I wanted to see what the overall reaction and reception was from everybody. And after the first year, the first 2 years, really, I found myself feeling like there was a lot missing from the conversations that I was hearing on average around cannabis. Mainly, as I say on the show a lot, I felt like everybody was a lot more familiar with Cheech and Chong jokes, let's say, rather than what cannabis can actually offer people's lives in terms of improvements to their quality of life. And speaking of Cheech and Chong jokes, listener, that brings me to this week's very special guest. I believe I promised a special guest for the 1-year anniversary episode of the Cannabis Man podcast on 420, which is this very episode, and I believe I have delivered on that front. This week's blockbuster guest is none other than Tommy Chong. I still am kind of in shock that I had the conversation that I did with Mr. Chong, and it is excellent. He has such great information and perspective, but he had a lot to say. He has a lot of great perspective about cannabis, about life in general, about philosophy. It's a very great conversation, and I cannot wait to share it with you, so stick around. You will hear all of that at the end of this episode. But right now, let's kick it off properly on the 1-year anniversary of the Cannabis Man podcast. And let's roll right into this episode's edition of the News Joint Wrap, brought to you by IllinoisNewsJoint.com. Think of it as the joint you can hit for all your Illinois cannabis news and reviews. And there's a lot of 420 events to talk about. Cannabis is hosting a 420 comedy show. This high holiday can be celebrated at Redline VR. They say they have an amazing lineup of some of Chicago's hottest comics with infused drinks and edibles, brought to you by Contact Canna. Tickets must be purchased in advance for people at least 21 years of age with a valid ID. You can buy them through a link at IllinoisNewsJoint.com. Also, Baked Buds is hosting a ribbon-cutting ceremony. It's the first licensed social equity infuser in the city of Chicago. They applied for the adult-use cannabis infuser license during the 2020 application period, finally getting approval November 30th of last year. And the brand's first product, CannaWorks, was delivered to dispensaries on February 17th. And now Baked Buds is set to host its official ribbon-cutting ceremony April 28th. The ribbon will be cut at 10 a.m. in Chicago. As an Illinois licensed infuser, Baked Buds can also use distillate to manufacture vapor, edibles, beverages, tincture, topical, and capsules. You can find out more information about that at IllinoisNewsJoint.com as well. Also, NECAN, the cannabis conference coming to the Prairie State, has announced its programming schedule. This is happening in in early June. As I mentioned, IllinoisNewsJoint.com will be there with a booth, listener. It's located at the Schaumburg Convention Center. It's running Friday, June 2nd and Saturday, June 3rd between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. Stop by booth 221 to see Illinois News Joint. You can get 50% off general admission ticket prices by clicking a link and using the promo code NewsJoint50. Again, you can get all this info and those links for tickets at IllinoisNewsJoint.com. Also have some great reviews of products up here. Some of the latest include Lemon Cheesecake Disposable Vape by Matter and Slurry Crasher by Cresco. Also the Lime OG and Blueberry Cupcake Infused Pre-Roll by Bullet Train. And then finally, the Senorita Infused Margarita by Contract Canna. All that and more at IllinoisNewsJoint.com. Before I get to my interview with Tommy Chong, I wanted to let you know, listener, that Cannabis Man has a new affiliation with Studio TBD. It's not funny, but I did hit the laugh track button, so let's just try it again, no big deal. Studio TBD. Yes. Yes. And scene. So, Studio TBD is a creative collective based in New York City, and they have these excellent cannabis-infused strawberry gummies. They have them in sort of two tiers, a 4 milligram THC with 25 CBD, or 10 milligrams THC to 20 CBD. What Robert Lund of TBD, listener, if you didn't hear that interview that I did with him, what he describes is their company philosophy is they want to keep cannabis in this sort of safe, fun place, and they have zeroed in on this lower THC, high CBD range as kind of the sweet spot for their products. They also have this fun feature to their packaging. There's kind of a little chart on the back that shows you in a little arc, basically, between low, medium, and high, where your journey after consuming one of these edibles will take you. They also have cannabis-infused green tea lemonade, which is hemp-based and now available for sale at tbd-products.com. And listener, starting right now, if you use the promo code CannabisMan at checkout, you'll get 20% off your order. So head to tbd-products.com, pick yourself up some of those strawberry gummies and some of that infused green tea lemonade, and have yourself an excellent 420 and beyond. And don't forget to use the promo code CannabisMan to knock off that 20%. Listener, my goodness, do I have a treat for you today. My guest is one of true cannabis royalty. He is definitely one of the original gentlemen of Mary Jane. Born in Alberta, Canada, born in May, as well as myself, very near to the 25th of my own birthday. And he's an actor and writer. You might know him from such classics as Up in Smoke, where he's credited as playing Man, which I thought was hilarious. Also, Cheech and Chong's next movie, Still Smokin', and very recently in a couple of episodes of that 90s show. Here to talk about all things cannabis, listener, please welcome Tommy Chong. Welcome, Tommy.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me on your show.
Oh, it is absolutely my pleasure. And I just got to tell you, man, I mean, you are truly, I mean, you're one of the, if there's a Mount Rushmore of cannabis influencers of all time, man, your face is right on that. And I mean, how does that feel to be kind of such a huge part of this culture of cannabis?
I wish I could tell you I felt different, but you know, it's funny. I'm 85, and people say, "Oh, how do you feel at 85?" Oh, actually, the same way I felt when I was 25.
That's awesome.
There's no difference.
That's awesome. I got to tell you, I mean, that sounds. I think a lot of people, if they could sign up to feel the way they did at 25 at 85, I think they would take that deal. And that's so that's awesome. That's awesome that you're feeling good. You look great. And did I have that right when I said you're born Alberta, Canada? Are you Canadian?
Yep, I'm born in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Yeah.
So when did you make the pilgrimage over the border to come to the U.S.?
We started probably in the 50s, actually, late 58, when it was the first time we went down to Seattle. And then when I say we, is that we had a rock and roll band. Canada's first rhythm and blues band in Western Canada, and then we had another band called the Hawks, Ronnie Hawken and the Hawks. They were in the East Coast, and we were in the West Coast. And so, I've been doing the music and coming down to the States periodically. From as soon as we got to see Vancouver, and then so 1958 we're coming down. We'd make pilgrimages down.
Sure.
The band was good, and we'd sneak across the border and go down and try to find work or try to play. And we would. It would depend on the singer that we had at the time, and
right.
And then when we finally found the right singer, then we got discovered by the Supremes, Diana Ross and the Supremes.
Yeah.
And then we got signed with Motown, and that's what really got me legally into the States, was Motown.
Gotcha. Oh wow, I didn't know that. So you were brought in as a musician, and you were touring, and you got a music career going. At what point then? And this is as you mentioned, kind of in the 50s. At what point did you start acting? When did movies come around?
The movies came about after we did the records. We did the comedy records first.
Yes, of course.
And so what happened when I got kicked out of Motown? Well, actually, I got fired from Motown for getting a green card. I had a really nice personal relationship with Berry Gordy.
Okay,
he was the king, but he was so busy. He was the king. One time we got deported out of Detroit to Windsor, which is across the bridge, because we never had the permit. And so I started, then I went on a thing to get a green card. And the rest of the band didn't want one. The rest of the band didn't want to become American. They wanted to stay in Canada, and so they weren't that interested. I on the other hand, I was. I knew what a green card would do for a career, so I went ahead and got my green card. But like I said, the roadie or the road manager for Chris Clark, who we were backing up at the time, he didn't understand what a green card meant, and so he just saw me missing a gig, and so he fired me.
Oh, and gosh!
It was kind of funny because he fired me from being a sideman, or actually a band leader, for Berry Gordy's girlfriend.
Oh my gosh!
and so I don't think he stayed long with the company after he fired, because I was the only guy that could put the band together, to make it work.
Oh.
As a band leader, I was always the weakest musician. and
the best producer with relationships, I'm gathering, like the strongest social connection, right?
Well, no, what it is, in order to have a good band, I found out very early, to play with really good musicians. See, this is what Berry Gordy found out. Berry Gordy found out that hiring jazz musicians was genius, because not only they come really cheap because they're always available, but they had the musical knowledge that would eliminate any problem. Once I got the green card, then I had to tell Berry Gordy that I'm going to stay fired. It was cute, because I told Berry, because he said, "That's a big mistake. You're not fired." Of course, Tom. Because, like I said, I was on a very nice personal relationship with Berry. And then when I said, I want to become a Berry Gordy, I don't want to work for one. And he said, I respect that. So he gave me a nice severance pay. And then I made my way out to California. And I had I was married with 2 kids, Raydon and Robbie. And they were in Detroit. And my wife, who was black, and the kids, they're mixed, but they're black. They were very comfortable in Detroit, because there's, from Canada where there's no black people to Detroit where there's no white people.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so they stayed in Detroit for a bit, but then once I got settled in California, and then my brother-in-law, who was the drummer of the Three Dog Night. He was living in L.A. at the time, and so then my black family came, and my first wife Maxine, she got a job right away in L.A. And so then they stayed in L.A. They came to L.A. and then eventually I ended up with the girlfriend who I'm still with, Shelby, and we just stayed in L.A. And I tried to pursue a career in songwriting, but so far I only wrote one song for Motown. I wrote one when Martin Luther King was assassinated, because I was still at Motown then when that happened.
Really?
And I wrote a song for that, but Barry didn't like it. Barry said, no, that's not it. And so then, and that was another reason. Had he said yes, I would have still been with Motown. But he said no, and so I got away. And it's very serendipity, what happened to me. My girlfriend, she never ever intended to be with me. She's my wife now of over 50 years.
Wow!
But,
so you wore her down at some point, yeah? No,
not at all. No, she liked me because I was married.
Oh, okay.
And
kept it simple.
And so she could have all the benefits of being with me, but none of the problems of having to deal with me as like a husband,
Yes, I get it. Okay.
Her aim in life was to marry. Her mother always told her, you can you can fall in love with a rich guy as well as you can a poor guy,
Right.
In fact, easier. So she was always waiting for that rich guy.
Yeah.
Well, we found that, what happened is that we took LSD together. That was when it first came out.
Whoa!
And we took LSD together. We made love. We created a daughter. Came out of the thing. And even then, my wife says, well, I'll have the baby, but you're going to raise her, because I don't want to be.
Oh man, yeah, I can imagine. Yeah,
she didn't want to be married. She's too young to be married with a kid and everything, and or to even have a baby. But you know how that is. Once you have the baby, you're not going to let that baby go anywhere.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's different when it hasn't arrived yet, and then once it arrives, things are a little different.
Oh, a little different, and then eventually my first wife was very sweet. We're still best friends, and we're really close.
That's awesome.
Today, well, she once I became a comedian, because see what happened when I got fired from Motown. Then my brother, who was running the night, we had 2 nightclubs in Vancouver at the time. And so my brother needed help. He said, come on, I need help. I need you. You're not with the band. You got to be with me. And so I had to go back to Vancouver. And my girlfriend and I, we went back to Vancouver. And like, she's so creative. And so she helped me. I wanted to change. We had a strip club. In fact, that was Vancouver's first, or Canada's first legitimate topless nightclub.
Man.
Yeah, and so I started it. But it like topless business, kind of sleazy,
Yeah, it does have a reputation. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but it was a great place to perform, like burlesque. That's what the burlesque comics. And so when I saw the strip joint, and then I put the improvisational acting, which I got involved in, from going to see the Committee and Second City. Then I said I had this vision of turning the strip club into a comedy theater.
Wow!
And using the girls, the strippers, as actresses.
Yeah.
And the fact that they all got their clothes really helped the show, because then it was sort of like a burlesque show. We got so good that we literally stopped doing the tits and ass bit, because it was beneath us.
Oh, so people were coming for the comedy. Enough people loved the new shows that you didn't. You jumped out of the topless. That's crazy.
We packed it. The problem is, though, we packed it with theater goers. And theater goers count their change. They sip their wine. You know what I mean?
Sure.
They're not like
not loose
bikers.
Yeah, like they're not spending a ton when they're out. I get it. Little tight grip on the wallet. Yep.
Oh, and the nudity offended them in a sense, you know. And so even though it was a big success with the theater, you know, we were dying with the strippers, and that was the big income. So my brother fired us. He said, you know, you guys, you know, this show has to go. And so Cheech and I were the only ones that wanted to keep doing it, you know.
Okay.
Cheech really got into it. So did I, you know, the acting and we, because we played music, we acted, we did everything.
Yeah.
And so Cheech and I put a band together because that really was my thing, you know, music.
Mm-hmm.
And then we played a battle of the bands, and Cheech and I never played a note. We just went up. We had a band, but I told the band, okay, we'll do a little music, and then we'll start we'll do a little comedy, then we'll do the music.
I got it. That was your plan all along, was to be like the comedy opener, and then they'd play music. I got it.
Yeah, but we never got around to the music. The comedy was too powerful, and that was it. And then that night, Cheech and I decided that we had a comedy team, and then we had to figure out a name. And we're driving home in the rain, and the windshield wipers stopped working, and so we had to put a coat hanger on the windshield wipers and lean out the window and work it manually.
Oh my God. Hand-powered windshield wipers? Oh my gosh.
And at the same time trying to figure a name for the group. And then
multitasking.
And then when I asked Cheech, I said, do you have a nickname? And Cheech said, yeah. And it was the first time I heard Cheech.
Oh.
And then I said, well, Cheech and Chong. It just runs up. It's so perfect.
It is. It's alliterative. It is, and the sounds go well together. And you're obviously musical. It's pleasant to the ear, so you picked up on that right away. I just think it's so funny that you were powering a windshield wiper with a coat hanger when the inspiration struck you for that. I mean, talk about a successful multitask right there. I mean, that is unique, man. That's awesome. And obviously, you guys went from there. You guys put out comedy albums, and then obviously the movies coming out in seems like the 70s and then through the 80s. What I'm curious about, obviously on the show, I talk about Cannabis, and I'm wondering, was that anything that you and Cheech ever like talked about and made a decision about, that Cannabis was going to be kind of front and center to the comedy you guys did, or did that just kind of happen?
Well, not at all, really. What happened, the whole time we were in Vancouver, we were hounded by this detective.
Whoa!
The cops, they were hounding us because they knew, that
at the club
what was happening.
Yeah,
at the club, the after hours club, they'd try to bust you coming out of the club, to get high. And they had undercover people, in there. And then when I started another club in the strip joint, a couple, this cracks me up because it's so funny. I'm working on the club. We had an extra room in the back. It was actually another nightclub.
Oh, okay.
So I'm decorating it and washing the floors, getting ready because we lost our lease at the after hours club. So we're moving one club into the back of the strip joint that we had. And while I'm working away, these two. A guy and a girl show up, and they got headbands on, which was really weird for a girl to be wearing a headband, like a scarf around their neck, I mean around their head.
Yeah, right.
Keep the hippie, kind of a hippie look.
Yeah.
And when I looked at them, I just, what's wrong with this picture? Because they're well built. They're like they weren't skinny little hippies.
Right.
And what they were asking. They wanted work. And so I knew right away, these aren't hippies.
Right. Because they're not, typical hippies not coming looking for a job. Like, that's not what they're asking somebody about.
No, hippies will ask for money.
Yes,
for
right.
food,
not for work.
Do you have any any change or anything, but the last thing you want to do is a jar. You know?
Exactly.
That's why they grow the long hair, and that's why they wear the clothes, because no one's going to hire them.
Right, you know? Yeah, it's a deterrent. They're deterring people.
Well, I figured it out. They're undercover cops.
Oh, my gosh.
So I worked their ass off, man.
Really?
And they were good workers. They
No way.
Floors. They moved tables around. They worked their ass off.
That is amazing. You put these undercover cops to work building like the new club space as you're moving the one that got shut down. You're moving that to a new space, and these undercover cops come in, and you have them set it up. That's amazing.
They offered. I said, sure, I can use it.
Yeah.
And so when they showed up that night, the word went out. You know, because we were not only smoking weed. Shelby's sister, Forrest, was selling it at the door.
Sure. Yeah. Right. Right.
Come in. You know, she was the dealer, and so we told her, and of course, told everybody. You know, those weird looking guys, they're cops, and so eventually the cops figured it out that they've been spotted, so they disappeared. Right. But in the meantime, you know, Cheech and I, you know, we just kept doing our comedy, and when we got down to L.A., we were doing more like tits and ass jokes that we did up north, you know. Sure. But when we got in front of a dance crowd one time, we did 2 shows. In the first show, it was terrible. We didn't go over it all. They did not. First of all, they did not want to stop dancing to watch comedy. Okay. And now we're in L.A. You know, this is a city that has every kind of entertainment you need. Right. And so we had another show to do. And so I said to Cheech, we got to come up with a character, you know, that these people can relate to. And so he came up with a lowrider character. Yeah. And then I had a bit that I knew from you know, my years in the black comedy circuit with Motown and that. You know, I'd get to watch black comedians, and there's one bit where Sir Pineapple was his name, and he would do a bit about driving a car, picking up his girlfriend and taking her out, but it was all mime. It was all improvisation. You know, where he created a car on the set just by pretending to clean it. Right, you know? Right, sure. Like and outlining it with like pretending to wash it and like opening the doors and stuff. Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, so I showed Cheech that, and then Cheech. That's how we started Up in Smoke. Up in Smoke really was started with that little, I guess, about a 5-minute act that we did on stage the first night. In L.A. Wow. Yeah, and it grew from that one little bit to a movie that's still being played. Absolutely. Yeah, it's a classic, 100%. And obviously, you know, you guys continued and rolled on from there. You know, as I mentioned before, Cheech and Chong's next movie in 80 and Still Smoking in 83. So you guys, at that point, you tapped into something that was clearly like part of the collective consciousness of the country at the time, you know? You were reflecting, I think, something that was resonating with people who had used cannabis or at least were curious about it. Well, what I wanted to do with the movie, because I was, you know, I'd been around a bit by that time, and I saw, you know, the problems that cops and everybody were having, you know, because I realized real early, you know, that marijuana was a racist law. Yeah. You know, it was put in for racist purposes. And I saw that in action in Canada, you know, not just with me, but I remember one time the feds in Canada busted 4 Tops, you know, the singing group. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, they got busted in Vancouver, you know, and they came down to the club and everything, you know, but they got busted for a roach. Oh, wasn't even, you know. The maid found a little roach in their hotel room, and so the feds got the next room. And when the 4 Tops came back, they busted into the room, arrested all of them, and the only funny guy was the Jewish comedian. He said, okay, the four tops. He said, hey, man, I'm not a four top.
Right. Don't bring me in there.
Yeah.
Man.
But he was in the room, so he had to go to he had to go to jail.
Oh, geez. They just get
and they
lumped in.
They said he was never that funny as he was trying to explain that. He said, I'm not with these guys. I'm a comedian.
Right. Probably gave him material for a long time after that, I would imagine.
Oh man. Well, I got a really good memory of everything because everything was so serendipity.
Mm-hmm.
Things happened. It was like, wow, why did this happen? I've met all these famous people, and then I realized why is because I'm famous.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what happened. Even to the point one time we're driving back from a gig we were in England with the band before I got fired.
Mm-hmm.
We're backing up Chris Clark, but as a treat, they give us a gig in England in a little club called the Speakeasy in London. And while we were playing, Jimi Hendrix comes in. He heard that we were in town.
Whoa!
He comes in the door, walks up to the stage, and calls me by name.
Dang.
Hey, Tom. Hey, mind if I sit in? And I right away I took off my guitar, but he wanted to play bass because he's a left-handed guitar player. But he could play bass.
Oh, okay.
And so he played bass the whole night. And
dude,
and we spent the whole night with Jimi Hendrix. It was great.
That's amazing.
When we went to the party, we never saw Jimmy. He went into the bathroom, never came out.
Oh man, yeah. It's that makes sense. It's on brand.
Yeah, and so the next day we're driving to the airport, literally in a limousine that the Beatles were riding around in, and the band is talking about, man, we played with Jimi Hendrix. Do you believe that? Jimi Hendrix. And I blurted, I usually didn't talk, but for some reason I said out loud, I'm going to be bigger than Hendrix.
Oh, nice. Called the shot.
And the whole band, the whole car got real quiet. And the drummer, who was he's kind of the mean guy,
Mm-hmm.
the mean, the bully.
Sure.
He said, "What? Playing guitar?" And I said, "No," because he knew, I was like the weakest musician in the band.
I see.
And I said, not the guitar. I had a flash. It was like it hit me. It hit me a few times.
Almost like a premonition. You felt like you were tapped into it and could see where it was going.
It was, yeah. I had that. I get it all the time now.
That's fascinating. Yeah. It really is. You feel like you're plugged into the flow of what's happening around you. You're sort of just a vision or a flash of sort of where you think things are headed.
I'm a puppet. I'm being led around. I'm being told what to do. I really am, man. I got turned on to some really heavy spiritual books the same manner.
Really?
Because, what happened when I did acid around that time, I was meeting all these spiritually aware people. Mm-hmm. Like I met a guitar player that turned me on to a book called The Third Eye.
Okay.
And it's by T. Lobsang Rampa. Well, he was an Englishman that had been reincarnated. He was a reincarnated Tibetan monk, I guess.
Whoa!
But he came back as an Englishman. But he had the knowledge that from the Tibetan life that he had.
Oh!
And he wrote a book, The Third Eye, and he wrote the book, and he explains, what happens to life, death. What happens, where the spirit goes.
Yeah.
It's called the overself.
Okay.
Everyone has an overself, and they handle quite a few entities. From the physical world, and then I got turned on to Catherine Ponder, and then I had an episode in New York City. I was going to the gym, walking with my gym bag with a nice summer day, and all of a sudden I felt something start beating me. Well, it stopped me. I was walking, and then I got stopped, and I got turned, and I'm facing this book publishing company, HarperCollins Book Publishing, and then something pushed me into the store, literally pushed me into the store. I couldn't stop.
Whoa.
And then it took me over to a bookcase, and I felt my hand, something took my hand and put it around the book. And the book is the biography of Joel S. Goldsmith.
You felt like you were steered toward that book, though, like on your back and on your arm. You felt like something grabbed you, move you toward it.
I had no doubt, because after I got the book, I bought it, and then my memory goes blank. Then I don't know if I went home. I think I did. I think I went back. I don't think I went to the gym. I think I went home after that.
Yeah.
And read the book.
Okay.
And I'm quite sure I did. And then I got his other books. In his books, I got turned on to Emmett Fox. He's another spiritualist. And between the two of these books, I've managed to get where I'm at now. I feel that I've got more work to do in because it was the cannabis that all the way to me going to jail for the bongs. You see?
Yeah.
All of that, like I say, was very serendipity, because I had this feeling that this is what I'm supposed to do, because when I went to jail, it was more like going to a religious retreat, because I went in there with my books and the I Ching, and then I got turned on to the sweat lodge while I was in there. So it really was, prison really was a refuge, from everything. And that's where, when I was in there, I got turned, it was crazy.
It almost sounds like you found some sort of enlightenment while you were in there from reading.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. And then I was helping others. and
I see.
I never had a bad, going to jail, you think, you'd have some bad times, like Cheech is terrified. He his dad was a cop, so, and Cheech was studying to be a priest at one time.
Wow.
So he's like, he didn't want to do the marijuana thing at all.
Right.
And it was only till after, now it's legal, that he jumped on board. But still, there's still more enlightenment ahead,
Right. I know what you mean. That's powerful stuff you're talking about, and I'm glad you brought that up. I wonder, how do you've obviously been in this space, and cannabis has made it's not only part of the material that puts you on the map, part of that act you were talking about in LA and the comedy you've done, and then going to jail for those bongs, getting arrested, spending time in there, and then finding that enlightenment. Cannabis has obviously been a central and huge part of your life, and what do you think about the current climate of legal cannabis in some states and not in others? Federally, it's still Schedule 1. We have this patchwork legalization thing happening. What's your opinion of how we're doing legal cannabis in the U.S. Right now?
Well, it's a much ado about nothing. What's going on? What the feds and the straight people are trying to do? Because they demonize cannabis so much,
right?
That there are people that are scared to death to try it. They've been brainwashed.
Totally. Yeah.
And I've been with I've been with the Johnny Appleseed of the cannabis because I carry strips with me, breast strips. And gummy bears.
Oh,
loaded,
like infused. Like infused stuff.
Infused. Yeah. So I was at a party one time, and the hostess, she was all hairy, So I said, "Here, try one of these." And so she took a strip, And she still talks about it to this day. It was the funniest thing. She got so stoned. and she says, I got so stoned. And I kept thinking these horrible things. And then I thought, oh, did I say them out loud?
Yep, definitely been there. Yeah.
Ooh,
That's hilarious. That's hilarious, though, because I mean, being that, as you said, like the Johnny Appleseed, kind of being that source of an experience like that for people who otherwise wouldn't imbibe, right? Otherwise, they wouldn't maybe try it unless a friend, like you, gives them something that you've got on your person.
Well, what I'm the conduit between them and their kids. You see, these rich people, when they find out. When they go home and tell their kid, we had supper with Tommy Chong. Now the kid who hasn't really talked to them for a few months, they go, Tommy Chong? All of a sudden, all of a sudden they got a connection. Oh, Tommy Chong?
That's awesome.
He's my favorite. I need a picture and all that stuff. Well, the other night we're out with these rich friends, the one that I gave the strips to, and her friend, who was a realtor, they're very, very healthy. They own, most of Malibu and all that stuff.
Oh, sure. Okay.
They're super wealthy.
High rollers.
Yeah. You know what the one thing they all have in common?
What's that?
The guys, they're all surfers.
Because
when you got money and you're growing up, you can afford to go surfing. Because you look at people that are surfing, it's people with wherewithal, with money.
Yeah, typically. Yeah, because, right.
It's not a ghetto thing.
Right, absolutely. Like golf or like snowboarding or something. Yeah, it's not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You got to have some coin to be in that club.
Right, right.
And surfers, the first thing they like to do is get high.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's hand in hand. Hand in glove, So
yeah,
I'm with them all, and they're telling me, they tell me this stories, they're rich growing up, and it's rich people have problems.
Of course, right.
Everybody has problems.
Yeah,
everybody, and the kids, and they're almost all the same. The poor people are happier because they know what they got to do.
Yeah,
rich people are unhappy because they got so many choices, but not really.
Yeah. So many choices, and there's a thing about like knowing who to trust or who actually is being genuine as a friend versus who wants something from you. Like, I get that. There are other problems where maybe they'd feel more stress or lonelier than somebody without money, so nobody's coming asking you for stuff.
And half the time, they don't know their parents.
Yeah, right.
The parents they're busy doing something, and they have the money to have people look after their kids, and so a lot of kids are raised by maids and raised by help. The help or the best friends or grandmas.
Right. Somebody other than the parents. Yeah.
And it's the poor people that they're so close. Because you've got nowhere to go.
Right. Right. No options. Exactly. You have to raise them yourself. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a lot of things that go with it, but the cannabis now what's happening is because it should never have been made illegal. Well, look at the drug cartel. Now they're dealing the fentanyl.
Yeah, right. Yes.
But they started off with marijuana. And that should have never happened. But now that we're almost there legally, they're clinging to the old ways, just like the oil. We're eventually oil is going to disappear off the planet,
right?
And we're just going to have electricity, and it's the oil people. That's why we're at war with Putin, and that's why Putin's at war, because the only thing that Russia has is oil. Yeah, and once oil disappears, they're going to probably. Little countries are going to probably break away, and like it should happen. Especially the Ukraine. Yeah, the Ukraine they got the port, and they got the land, they got the bread basket. So Ukraine's going to be one of the wealthiest countries just because of what they can offer, and it's going to be a great place to live. all this is good, and Russia's going to be incredible too. But they see this is what I see. This is what we give you. The reason why Trump is still around is because he is the cleaning agent. They get rid of the swamp.
Yes.
Well, Trump, first of all, he is the swamp, and then he attracts the other swamp critters. And so if you're a swamp critter, you're going to be disappeared eventually.
Right.
Right now you got numbers on your side, but very quickly, you're not going to have any followers.
Right.
They're going to get wise, they're going to smarten up, and they're going to realize, that everything Trump was, the racism is a lie.
Oh yeah.
And so when you go into a white nationalist thing, that's a lie.
Yes.
And
it's manipulation. It's some people are getting manipulated. Yeah.
Yeah, and lies will destroy you. Because that's what the Bible says. The wages of sin is death. And death doesn't mean, you're going to die a horrible death. Death means that's the end. That stops whatever lie you're doing has to stop eventually because it can't live. It's a lie. It's not real.
Right. It can't live without more lies sustaining it, like every day, basically. It can't stand on its own because you need to keep on offering other false evidence to keep backing it up.
That's right. And eventually you run out of time or material or whatever. And eventually the truth will always be there. I've been when I went into the joint, I was kind of studying, the Bible, and I got another a book here. It's called the Runner's Bible.
Gotcha.
Now, it's spiritual guidance for people on the run. They broke down the Bible into just little parts that make sense. It's not about who did what. It's about you could just hope to any page.
Okay.
Something.
Sort of like an abridged, focused version of the Bible.
Yeah. They took out all the extra bullshit and just put the.
That sounds good. That sounds like a good thing to have.
Well, I got to tell you, it's intricate or it's difficult only if that's your path. We're all on a different path, and some people's path leads to dead ends because you have to learn.
Right.
Don't go down here. You can't tell people, don't open that door. They have to open the door.
Right.
They have to see why they're not supposed to open the door.
Exactly. Exactly.
And that takes time. And the thing is, we have eternity. And so that's why you can't get mad at anybody because if they're stupid or they haven't evolved, they're just in that state of that we were all once in,
right?
And now instead of being angry or arguing with them, that's why people they say agree quickly with your adversary.
I like that.
The reason you do that is there's no sense to argue about anything.
Right.
Because whoever's arguing, say, Biden never won the election.
Right.
I agree with him. And you just say, well, if that's your take, fine. I'm not going to, don't argue,
Yeah.
Because the truth is, in their mind, because of their sickness, they don't feel that Biden won. But in reality, it'll take them time to come to that reality. And we don't know how much time it's going to take. Everybody's different.
Right.
And so what you do, you agree quickly with them, and then you move on.
Right. It's yes. You just said a lot of profound stuff that you're saying there, Tommy. Because I think what you're kind of getting to is that if I come across somebody and I feel strongly about one opinion and they feel the opposite, the arguing, nothing that I say is going to convince them to change their worldview. You don't know how long they're going to be steeped in that. You don't know where they are in their own journey. And by giving effort, standing there, making the argument, feeling anger, feeling whatever, hatred, all those negative emotions that come with the conflict and come with arguing. It's so much simpler, and you avail yourself of all that negativity by just simply choosing not to argue and being like, hey, you know what? You think that, and I'm going to go over here and think my thing, and hey, hopefully you wake up and join me over there one day.
Yeah, either that or just say, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You're the end of argument.
Right, and then you have a beer, and it's like, okay, great, that's the end of it. Or have a joint, you know?
Yeah.
Let me ask you, Tommy, and again, thank you so much for joining us today. You've been so generous with your time. I really appreciate it. But I'm just curious, one more thing about like the nomenclature, like how we refer to cannabis, the word marijuana versus the word cannabis. Does the word marijuana, does it hold any negative significance for you? Does it bother you? Do you think cannabis is like the way we should be going? What's your opinion about the word that we should use, to identify it?
I could. If anything, I want to find out how many times, how many names does marijuana have. I love, another thing I did, that when you drink a toast.
Oh, yes.
I'm learning a toast in all the languages. Skull.
Yes. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and that's the same way I feel about weed. Giggle grass, Right. The more terms, the better, because it's just fun to be able to say different things. Yeah, that's it. Again, that's like agreeing with your adversary. See, nothing bothers me because I don't let anything bother.
That is really deep. It's really deep. I think it's meaningful. I think if more people could kind of get to that place, I really do feel like the world would be a better place, because you just people find so many things to disagree about and just really carry that, with them every day.
Yeah. When I was a kid, I went to Bible camp. And the thing I loved about Bible camp, first of all, they had a singer around the campfire. First of all, they had a campfire. I love campfires.
Yeah. Those are sweet, man.
Yeah, I love campfires. And then the singer sit around the campfire singing. I can play guitar, I can sing, and so I love that part of it. And then the first night, they taught you how to pray. Oh. And I never really learned how to pray until I went to Bible camp, and where they, because usually you go to church and they let us pray, and then they pray.
Right. You just kind of bow your head and do whatever.
A lot of times you bow your head and look around to see what other people are doing. You're not really listening.
Right. Totally.
Well, in Bible camp, they told you how to pray, and that what it is, it's Emmett Fox talks about the golden key. There's a golden key, and what it is, it's your attitude. The attitude, and the golden key is this here, is that when you're in a stressful situation, the golden key is when you, first of all, you adjust your attitude. From say for instance, I use this in the airlines a lot sometimes. We're flying somewhere, and all of a sudden they say, flights are being canceled. You're going to be stuck here at the airport. Blah blah blah.
Sure.
And so you get this anxiety. You got a meeting to go to, and you got to be there in the morning.
Right.
You're going to lose.
Right.
So the first thing you do, you regroup. You regroup, and you say to yourself, that's not the worst thing that could happen to me.
Right. Right.
So change your attitude. And so when you change your attitude and you become understanding and mellow and calm, that affects, that's like turning on a light. That's why spiritual people call people that are evolved the light of the world. And so when you change your attitude, something clicks inside of you, and it's like a love thing. And it happened to me in prison. When the first night I was in jail, I could hear the door lock, and it was a dormitory, and I felt claustrophobic because now I'm locked in here with all these criminals, and then my attitude changed. I felt this warmth come over me. And I felt this feeling of everything's going to be all right. Everything is doing what it's supposed to do. You're supposed to be going through this now. And that's like the airplane thing. You know, you get stuck. We were stuck in Denver, and it looks like we were going to be stuck there in the snowfall and blah, blah, blah. And then I changed my attitude. I did the golden key. Mm-hmm. And when I talked to the ticket agent, I kind of smiled at her and said, "I'm having a tough day, huh?" And then she smiled back and says, "Well, we're getting there." And she says, "Okay, how can I help you?" And I said, "Well, we're trying to get to LA." And then she goes, "Well, you know what? I think you're in luck. There's a plane at door number whatever it was, and if you get there now, I think they got a couple of seats for you." See how the golden key works?
Exactly. It unlocked an opportunity right there that might not have presented itself to you had you had a different attitude, right?
Can you imagine had I been bitching and moaning?
Yes.
She would have had to deal with that part.
Exactly. And then not be so willing to be like, "Oh, hey, I see a solution here on my screen."
Well, first of all, I never gave her a reason for a solution. All I was, when you're, just throwing a tantrum for no reason.
Right. Exactly.
But you tell them your problem, and they can fix it. That's why they're there.
Right. Totally. I love what you're saying right now, Tom. I think this is such important stuff because I kind of get in this argument with people. I work in media. I've worked, I spent a year working at a law firm, and like lawyers and media people are very cynical by nature. I mean, not to, generalize, but I would say most of the ones I've met, pretty cynical people because they look at, rough parts of human nature all the time. And so they tend to start, I think, expecting the worst. And when something happens, they start to look at it with an immediately negative viewpoint. And I've always gotten into arguments with people about, because I'm more of an optimist. I just find myself finding the positive. I find myself looking at the light side of things, or at least trying to in different situations. And, I'll get sort of made fun of sometimes by more cynical people as if the optimism is some kind of naivete. Like it's, you're being naive to not see that eventually things are going to go bad. But I argue with them that optimism is a choice, that it's not easy to be finding the positive all the time, or to to do that work of changing your attitude. But like what you're talking about, if you work at that and if you get better at it, it becomes more natural. It becomes a stronger muscle to kind of even unconsciously change your perspective, change your attitude about something.
You can change weather. Did you know that? You can actually change weather.
Wow. No,
Why do you think we got all the snow in California? Because of the drought.
Yeah.
Everybody was praying for the snow. Think about it. That the prayer works. Look at the Donald Trump. Joe Biden never had a chance of getting to be president until Donald Trump appeared.
Totally.
Joe Biden tried 2 or 3 times, and he couldn't even get the nomination. He couldn't even get past there.
Right.
Because who's Joe Biden? A funny little white guy.
Right. Couldn't even get through the primary. Exactly.
Donald Trump comes along, and the only guy he's afraid of is who? Joe
Right.
Biden.
Right. It's fascinating.
Who's president now? Who's the president now? Who's going to be president next year? Next term?
Hopefully it's Mr. Biden again. And we're all waiting for him to just, I think, come out and say definitively that he is running again, and just
timing.
Yes.
He's got no choice. He was ordained. Mm-hmm. He's got to finish the job. He's already telling you that he's going to finish the job. But you see what's happening now, because it's ordained. We're on the right side of the attitude, and the attitude is share with people. Be kind to people. Don't the border, for instance. Don't treat everybody like they're going to deliver drugs or up here to create mischief. Right. These are human beings that want to eat and support their family, and without being fear of the cartels and unlawlessness.
Absolutely.
And so eventually we're going to get this.
And there he goes. That was it, listener. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. I found the conversation with Tommy Chong to be excellent. I just want to thank him again so much for taking the time and sharing some of that perspective. You may have noticed that the interview ended a bit abruptly. That was not erroneous. No audio quality or editing issues like that. But Tommy Chong did make a sort of an announcement related to an idea that he has to address the immigration system into the U.S. He asked that I not share it until he had a chance to make the announcement official, so I will obey the wishes and I will sit on that last 10 minutes of our conversation. But once Tommy makes that announcement, I will share the rest of the conversation with you and you can hear him describe it for himself. But I thought it was kind of cool and I look forward to sharing that as well. But in the meantime, I hope you can enjoy some of Mr. Tommy Chong's excellent content that he's made over the years and sort of celebrate 420 this year in that style. And one note here, listener, advocacy group's 420 letter urges Biden to back marijuana legalization and take steps to remedy criminalization's harms. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'll give you the gist. A coalition of 85 civil rights and drug policy reform groups are sending a letter to President Joe Biden and other key federal officials on Thursday. That would be the day this is released, 420, using the unofficial marijuana holiday to urge the administration to deschedule cannabis and support comprehensive legalization legislation, which is something I've been urging on this show for the last year. But hey, people got to get to it when they get to it. The letter, led by the Drug Policy Alliance with other signatories like the ACLU and Human Rights Watch, further outlines administrative steps that officials can take in the interim to build on Biden's mass marijuana pardon last year and repair some of the harms of prohibition. The groups applauded the clemency proclamation as well as Biden's directive for a review into cannabis's scheduling status, but they pointed to a number of limitations to both actions. For example, the pardon explicitly excluded non-citizens who, quote, face mandatory detention, deportation, and other immigration consequences based on minor possession convictions. It also does not affect possession cases that happen after the proclamation was issued. That is, I would say, a very large caveat. The coalition also raised concerns about the scheduling review process, stating that even if it did ultimately result in moving marijuana to a lower schedule, cannabis would still be criminalized, and the same racially disproportionate enforcement trends would likely persist. I think that's a very valid concern. And again, I'm very happy that this group is sending that letter urging the president to consider more drastic steps, getting cannabis to that descheduling, hopefully, or all-out legalization level that we all want to see it at. I won't read the rest of the article, but I will share it on the show's social media pages at C-Man Podcast on Twitter and Instagram. And just a reminder, listener, it is 420, but on any day of any week, if you're looking for new cannabis products, whether you need a new piece to smoke out of, if you need a new grinder because yours is kind of sticky or the teeth are broken and it's not really breaking up the bud in the best ways anymore, head to 420pipes.com. You can find great deals on products for $4.20 any day of the week. They also have locally made products here in Illinois or around the country in different spots. You can input your zip code and it'll populate a list where you can find head shops local to you and you can order their products through 420pipes.com. And they also have some unique products. They're growing their stock of inventory all the time and they're coming out with cooler and cooler stuff. I just got myself a Stormtrooper ceramic piece a few weeks ago. I love that thing. Been watching a lot of Star Wars with the fiance recently, and it's satisfying in a deep and almost disturbing way to me that I get to just smoke out of that Stormtrooper head while I'm watching the Jedi just take them down. So you can have some sort of fun thing like that for yourself if you like, or if you're just looking for some pieces to keep around so that you've always got something to smoke out of. As I said, $4.20 for these items every single day of the week. Plus, enter the promo code CannabisMan at checkout and you can knock off another 10% from your order. So head to 420pipes.com, promo code CannabisMan for 10% off, and enjoy your 420 in style. That's all I got for you this week, listener. Again, just want to thank my guest, Tommy Chong, and it was such a great conversation. I've had so many great conversations over this last year. It has been amazing to be doing this show and having the conversations that I've had, and just just kind of chronicling this journey of legal cannabis as it's been slowly trickling from one step to the next, it feels like. But it is moving state by state, day by day, and hopefully the momentum, as we say, hopefully the green wave just crashes through at some point here. But until it does, we will be here. The show is going to be going on, chronicling this, and until we get, until the prohibition truly is over, and until, cannabis is allowed, normalized to be a part of everyday citizens' day-to-day lives without any hint or any whiff of the stigma from the 1900s and all that reefer madness garbage. Until all that's gone, this show is going to be here chronicling these developments and looking at the cannabis industry and having these conversations with people all the time and bringing this information to you. So thank you so much for listening and engaging with the show. I can't wait to bring you more conversations like this on the Cannabis Man podcast. Bye-bye. Cannabis Man is 100% originally crafted by myself, Don Kleppen. Original theme music written and composed by Yusu Kim, aka Good Son.